I just want to give all the time I can to Tom. I had Tom on my podcast yesterday. I think Zach actually spoke to his RIA. He runs a RIA last night. But just to give you a little backstory, I want to give more time to him. You guys know how I love people that have been in the biz, right? Back in 2001, Tom was broke, not dissimilar to my situation. He also had a near-death experience while rafting, pushed him to kind of look for ways to escape his W-2, which so many of you guys are trying to do. Like, there's so many similarities here with Tom. I love chatting with him. Real estate saved his butt, personally, financially, and hundreds of deals later. He loves talking about negotiation in marketing and the business in general. But on the podcast alone, he was sharing some nuggets. So I thought it'd be really cool to have him on here with you guys. I gave him 50 minutes to do whatever he wants until 10 of, but maybe there'll be some Q&A and some chance for interaction. So Tom, thanks for spending time with us, buddy. And it's good to see you again after yesterday's interview. Where are you?
My pleasure. I'm around here somewhere.
All right. If we could pin him, Lynn, that'd be great. Thank you, Tom. The floor
Got
is
it.
yours, buddy.
There you go. Now, all right. Can you see me now? I'm behind a map, but
I'm behind a map.
it was. All right. Look at that.
There you are.
We on?
Yes, you are. I never saw that map, but that was pretty cool. But you're on by yourself now.
Cool. Good. The map was fun. We got a nice, got good geographic spread. We're all over the place. And the one interesting, similar thing that we all need to do is negotiate, define deals. So that's exactly what I promised you I'd drill down on with everyone today. I'm also going to try to go a mile a minute. I want to cram a whole bunch into the 45.
They're used to me, Tom. You can go as fast as you want.
Good. Yeah, I mean, I figure they're used to a guy from Boston talking, so a guy from Buffalo won't talk any slower. It'll still be good. Let me. I'm going to draw things out as I go. So I had sent in a workbook. Don't worry if you have the workbook downloaded. It's not a problem. You can just draw along with me, and the most important thing is to pay attention, because I'm gonna teach you some exact techniques to be using in your negotiations, and I want you thinking about the overall structure of a negotiation probably very differently than you ever thought about it before. So look, there's a couple of big problems with negotiation. One of them, first and foremost, honestly, is that most people are afraid of it or have no clue about it. So you're either clueless or scared of it, and that is always a little bit awkward for people. I want to clear that up. I want to make it into a straightforward, understandable system that is actually fun, not frightening. And I think that's going to change the way you look at it. So, but then as you dig in, you start to realize there's some other big problems there. I mean, what if you don't know how to talk to a motivated seller? Our entire business revolves around talking and getting to know and getting them to like us and trust us and want to do business with us, with the motivated sellers connecting with us as investors. So we've got to get good at knowing what to say. We've also got to know how to say things, because how we come across in negotiation makes a ton of difference to how we're perceived and how readily we're accepted and how much people want to say yes to us or not. So we've got to really pay attention to the kind of quiet confidence behind what we say. And then the third one is if you don't have specific techniques to get people saying yes to you, they stay stuck on no, and that's no good and that's no fun. So if we want to get negotiation right, we've got to turn everything around. We've got to learn to say the right things at the right time. We've got to learn to say everything with confidence, because that's the true game changer in negotiation, and that will come with practice. Just practice what I'm teaching you today, and your confidence will build. And all of this, I know it's going to come across a little funny. It's going to seem a little strange at first, but following this crazy dance, this hot and cold, push and pull, on and off, back and forth you do with somebody, that's what actually seals the deal for them. It really makes all the difference in the world when you are dealing with other people, is that you can't give them exactly what they want right away. Even if you could, you don't want to do that, because then they're more likely to say no to you until they fight for their price. So your goal as a real estate investor is to always get the other party, the motivated seller, to bring you up to quote unquote their price. But you're going to see how I look at their price, because it's not exactly maybe the way you think about it. So Why do I call my system the negotiation stack? Well, because it's stackable. I know Chris uses the term stack a lot too. There's things that you stack and like motivations for marketing. The more motivations you have in the stack, the more motivated that person is. Well, negotiating is a stack as well. And when we learn to negotiate with, look, I've got 52 different techniques, and when you learn to just apply the relevant techniques of those 52 and stack them, you get a custom stack for each and every negotiation. It's never exactly the same because no two people are exactly the same. No two deals are exactly the same. So we're always taking the 52 different techniques and building a custom stack, kind of like a giant box of Legos. It's particular building blocks, and we can put them together in whatever way makes the most sense for what we're dealing with. But I also view stack as an acronym to help you understand what the process is. So the foundation of a good negotiation is all based on having the right strategy. You've got to have a strategy in your negotiation, an end goal, this is what your main target is. This is what you are after. This is what you are trying to achieve. That's your strategy. That's different from the tactics. A lot of people seem to confuse the two. They talk about strategy, they actually mean tactics. Or they talk about tactics, they actually mean strategy. That tactics are the specific things that you do, the specific building blocks that build up achieving your. That's the difference. It's these tactics that I've got 52 different ones of, and it's these tactics that I'm going to start to dive into today, and I'll show you probably at least a half a dozen different tactics that you can be using instantly. Because Chris, I'm assuming you have no objection, but I would like everyone to leave today's event an exponentially better negotiator than they are right at this moment. So I'm assuming you like that. I'm assuming they all like that too, because it's a beautiful spot to be. Is that cool? Okay. Good. Next up, we have to have an angle. We have an angle to what we're doing, an angle to how we're approaching the negotiation. Angle can get a little more, it can get a little deeper and more sophisticated. It's what is the other party thinking? What are they made of? How do they react? What's their personality type? And how can we best interface with that? Look, probably the easiest way to teach it is by way of example. So the last deal that I locked up about 4.5, 5 weeks ago was a condo, and it was an already listed property. It was long days on market on the MLS. And I looked at it and I said, this one looks good. I can turn this into a deal. So I ran a skip trace on it and found the phone number to go along with the name of the owner on record. Now, you know how it is these days. Everyone leaves footprints about themselves all over the internet, right? Maybe that's the one thing social media is actually good for, is people have just put a ton of stuff out there about themselves. So when I looked up this owner, it was an older woman, and when I skip trace her, I was able to find her photo. And I looked at her photo, and she looked a little bit like my mom. Not exactly a twin, but similar age, similar hairstyle. They had a similar look. And people that are similar to each other usually tend to get along. So I thought, this is interesting. So I turned to my mom. I said, Mom, would you like to do a deal? And she said, well, of course. And obviously I'm doing it all for her, right? She said, well, we got to do. I said, I'll take care of everything. Watch what we do. So I created a letterhead that said, from the desk of Linda Zeeb. And I put my mother's picture at the top of that letterhead because I want the woman receiving it to see that picture and relate to my mom. Just a subtle little thing. And then on top of it, during my research on her, on this seller, I found that she was a Hungarian national. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So let's do this as well. I put on the top of the letterhead, I put two colored stripes, 2 bars, colored stripes across it, underneath where it said from the desk of Linda Zeeb. Guess which 2 colors I used? The colors of the Hungarian flag. Just a subtle little thing, but it makes someone feel that much more comfortable. This is all kind of angle and process. Then in the body of the letter, I used the techniques that I'm about ready to teach you. So these techniques were written out in the body of the letter. And the result was a property that was listed for $230,000, I locked up for $150,000. So an $80,000 drop using strategy, tactics, angle, and the rest of the stack. that I'm talking about right now. So you'll see how that plays out, and you start thinking about the equity that you're grabbing kind of right off the bat from understanding how to play the negotiation game the right way. Oh, one more little story about that before I move on. Quick sidebar. This was listed property, so I was negotiating it through my agent, through the
Hey, I
agent
left my jacket here like weeks
on
ago.
my team.
I keep forgetting to come by and get it.
There we go. I managed to hit that crosstalk noise. All right. So I met what I did on this deal was I had negotiated through an agent. Well, the agent says, "Oh, my broker doesn't like these love letters. Nobody reads them. They don't work. They don't send a letter to the other party." I said, "Well, of course you do, and of course they work, and of course you're going to do it. Otherwise, I go elsewhere." And guess what happened? Again, it worked, right? I dropped from 220 and locking it up at 150. So don't worry about when people say something doesn't work. Just move ahead and do it anyway. Then the C is for confidence. This is the game changer in the negotiation. This will come from practice, practicing what I teach you and getting to use it, getting to put it into play, getting it to fit you like a glove. You're going to see that there's different ways you can use these techniques. Well, that's the art of negotiation, right? The artistry is the art is how you approach it. But I'm not worried about the art. The art really doesn't matter. It's not the art of negotiation that makes a difference. It's the science. There's a science behind the negotiation techniques I teach you. Most of that science is psychology, human psychology. And so we're going to be able to predict what people say because we understand the way people think. And then, so the top of this pyramid, to pull it all together, you have to have the right know-how. So that's our stack: strategy, tactics, angle, confidence, and know-how. So how does it all fit together? Well, when we get moving, we have to recognize when to use the different techniques. So of the 52 different techniques that I teach, and of the 6 I'll teach you today, they fall into 3 main categories because there's 3 phases of a negotiation. So if we know what those phases are, we can know which tactics are appropriate for them. The interesting thing is, though, some of the tactics only fall into 1 category. Some fall into 2 of the categories. Some fall into all 3 categories. So we need to understand what those categories are. And again, I said the categories match the phases of negotiation. So the first phase is quite simply, you need to have techniques to get the ball rolling. You got to have icebreakers, things you say to get the conversation started, things you say to start pinpointing the problem, to start peeling off layers of the onion of what their issue is and get them opening up to you and talking to you. Because the more they talk to you, the more you find out, but the more they talk to you, the more a bond is being built between you two, the more that rapport is being built. And that rapport is going to be key to carrying you through the negotiation, convincing them to say yes to you. And at the same time, this is important, at the same time, it's eliminating all the other competition, because people get to know you and they trust you. They like you. They want to do business with you. They don't want to do business with somebody else anymore because you've dug deeper. The best thing is you can do that by just talk. You don't have to talk about yourself. In fact, you shouldn't really be talking about yourself. Talk about them and their problems and watch what happens. That deep level of rapport builds. Then, since you've gotten the ball rolling, the next step of the process is to have techniques to get the price down. Get that price down, moving in a downward direction. When we can start to just say some simple things, a little tongue fu fighting, right? Simple things we say that just start to put downward pressure on the price. And you'll hear it said that you'll never make money faster than when you're negotiating. And that's 100% true, because saying some simple things, using some simple techniques on the phone or in person, or even over email or a text, it just puts the right pressure on somebody and starts to drop the price down. And so before you've even gone to see the property, you're starting to make it into more of a potential deal for you by using these techniques the right way. Then the third phase of negotiation, and the third phase that we need techniques for, is quite simply, you need to have techniques to get it closed. You can't dance around all night. At a certain point, you got to make a move. And so a lot of people freeze up at this point. They don't want to convert from like talking to somebody and working on it to asking them for an answer. I get it. That scares a lot of people, but you need to get good at just asking them to say what to you, to say yes. Yeah. I actually want you to ask them to say no, right? Get them to give you an answer and be A-okay if they say no. I mean, we're very happy if they say yes. That's obviously the goal. But sometimes to get to the yes, we have to get them to say no first. The only yes is good, no is good. Maybe is the killer. Maybe's no good. Maybe's the problem. And maybe we're stuck in limbo. We don't know what's going on. So we want to push them for an answer, a yes or a no. And sorry, I'm going to say this in a little awkward way, ladies and gentlemen. No doesn't really mean no in negotiation. No just means no for now. No, this isn't right yet. You haven't put enough time. You haven't you haven't packaged up the right solution for me at the moment. That's what they're saying when they say no. Because if they're in trouble and they want to sell their property, they need to be saying yes. And they want to say yes, but they don't want to get screwed over. They don't want to give the property away. They don't want to lose the deal. They don't want to walk away and not have their problem solved. So if you're getting no, it's because you haven't done a good enough job of packaging up a solution that would work for them yet. That's what you need to think about. So what are some of the techniques that we can do to make this happen? Well, let's start off with my all-time favorite negotiation technique. It's called flinching. Flinching is, oh, you'll see why it's my favorite in a minute. So everyone look at the screen, look at the camera, because I want to make sure you don't miss this very important demonstration of how flinching works. So the principle of flinching in negotiation means that anytime anybody says any number to you whatsoever, I want you to act like you were physically assaulted by that number. All right. Hey, anytime anybody says any number to you whatsoever, act like you were smacked in the face by that number and have this like a visceral repulsion of that number. All right. Maybe you'll be as ridiculous as I am. Maybe not. Either way, the art doesn't matter. It's the science that works. You need to flinch every time you hear a number, because what happens when you do that? Now think about it. If you said a number and you said 200,000 and I went, yikes, 200,000. That's a lot. That flinch, what do you feel? How do you feel about it? In fact, I'd love to see, put some things in the chat. How do you feel about a number? You say a number, I flinch like that. What's the first thought in your mind? Let me see some of the answers in the chat. Yep. We were saying, you made a mistake. Yeah, that's a problem. Dylan, maybe they're unsure about it. Yeah, that's a big problem. Uh-oh. Exactly, Angel. So I mispronounced that. Yeah, uh-oh, something's wrong. Oops, that's a big problem. Or he don't like my number. That's right, I don't like that number. It is clear because of that. Or you need to bring it down because there's some uncertainty there. And it's just, yeah, sometimes there's a little bit of offense, but that gets them moving with what they're doing. So yeah, those are the very common, right? You all kind of, if you notice all those answers from multiple people are kind of clustered around that same idea that something's off here. He doesn't like that number. We're going to have to change it. So look, the reason I want you flinching is because it puts those thoughts into their head right off the bat. And so you're already putting downward pressure on the price. So it gets the ball rolling and starts to put downward pressure on the price. And yes, I know you watch me kind of physically smack myself, but it works on the phone too. You can do a verbal flinch, right? If you couldn't see my face, yet, but you said a number, I could still be on the phone and say, "Woo, that's a lot," right? And then you're still that kind of the pulling the air through the teeth and some sort of verbal displeasure at the number is a good flinch, and it works in a text message or an email as well. You can write back, "Yikes!" exclamation point, or "Seriously?" question mark. Really? Exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point. All of that, all of those words can do that same thing. You kind of put a shot over their bow and let them know that there's something not quite right about it. So that's flinching. Now, look, I know I flinch ridiculous. I'm totally admitting my flinch is off the charts, silly and crazy. I've got a student, her name is Keisha. She's very sweet and calm and kind and lovely. and quiet, total opposite of me in that respect. And she asked me, she said, Tom, is this going to work for me? Because I don't see myself being as weird as you. And I smiled. I said, yeah, I know. I get it. I said, yes. The answer is yes, it's going to work for you. Because remember, I said, it's not the art that matters. It's not the it's the science behind it. So I said, let's do a little role play, Keisha. Let me, I'm going to say a number I want you to flinch. So I said 10, and Keisha went, ooh. I thought, oh man, that's it. That's her flinch. Ooh. But it fit her. I said, you know what? No, that the art doesn't matter. It's the science. You go with your bad self and go make that happen. So she showed up in my next event. She was all excited. She did her first deal. She kept it real simple. She just popped the deal under contract, assigned it to another buyer, made a fast $10,000. She was thrilled. I said, how did it go in that negotiation? She goes, I was kind of nervous because I knew I was going to have to do that silly thing that you do. So, and she goes, and I did it and it worked. I said, well, there we go. So whether you flinch like me, something big and ridiculous, or ooh, something quiet and calm like Keisha, or most probably somewhere in between, it's going to work just fine for you because it's based on the science. So one of my homework assignments for all of you is to flinch today on your very next day, on the calls you make this evening, this afternoon, tomorrow. Flinch, watch what happens. Because it works like a charm. I love flinching. You know what I also love? The second technique, which is called bracketing. 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 What on earth is bracketing? Well, let me put it to you this way. Where do two people tend to meet? Where do we all know that people are supposed to meet? The most fair spot for two people to meet is in the middle, right? If we meet halfway, we meet in the middle. That's just fair, isn't it? We both gave up something. We both. So we know stereotypically that if we meet in the middle, then people are going to be comfortable and happy and feel like, oh, you know, everyone, you're where you should be. It was fair. Okay. So what bracketing is then is we are engineering the middle. We're going to engineer the middle to be exactly where we need the middle to be. So the middle becomes your maximum allowable offer. The middle becomes your target price in the negotiation. So let me use that same example from earlier. You're on the phone with a motivated seller that contacted you because of your marketing. Obviously, at some price, at some point, you're asking them, how much are you asking for the property? And they say, 200,000. Now that's a number, isn't it? So you're going to start to bracket. Now, let's say you need to get it at 150. If you got it at 150, you would have a deal. But they say 200,000. So what do? Woo, 200,000. First thing you do is flinch, remember, because this is a stack, and you always want to have these layers, these stacked up layers in negotiation. So first we flinch, then we're going to bracket. Now, if my target is 150 and this seller's at 200, well, they're $50,000 high. So to make 150 the middle, I would have to go $50,000 low, right? To make it the middle. So basically, you're writing this down and taking notes. Bracketing is you want your starting offer to be the same distance below your target price as they are above your target price. So you want your starting offer to be the same distance below your target price as they are above your target price. Make sense? So we're meeting in the middle. So we can progress to that middle, and then everyone feels like they won, because write that one down too. Feeling like they won is a huge negotiation principle. Always let the other side feel like they won. All right, so in that example, they're at 200 and I'm aiming for 150. If I'm bracketing, I guess I would be offering 100,000. Yeah, but you know what? Flinch. I would never offer $100,000 on that property because of this third technique. Specific numbers. I would never, ever, ever, ever offer $100,000 on that property. But I would, however, offer $103,579. Because how does that number sound to you? Let's hear it in the chat. How does that number sound? When I offer $103,579, how does that come across and how does that sound? Elijah's saying random. Yes, it is a little random. Rue's saying reasoned. Yes, I reasoned it out, didn't I? Thought it through. Really, some really deep thought, Judy, right? Thoughtful. I really calculated it. Yes, I'm very scientific with the spreadsheet. It sounds fair, sure. It sounds well thought out. It sounds calculated, Victoria, exactly what I'm after. David, you're right. It's totally specific. And Todd, you nailed it right. I put some thought into it and developed a price because, yeah, that's the interesting thing about it. It sounds that way, doesn't it? It sounds scientifically calculated. It sounds like I really know what I'm doing. Sounds really professional. But where did I really get the number from? I pulled it out of thin air. So that first who had said that was kind of random. Yeah, Elijah, you were right. It was random. But the interesting is yes, Maria Elena, it doesn't sound off the cuff. No, 100,000 would sound off the cuff because they're at 200. I'm saying 100. It sounds like we're just spitballing, and numbers that you're just spitballing off the cuff are problematic. So what I want you to do is be specific, because now you sound scientifically calculated. You sound like you really know what you're doing. You sound more professional, and this is what's important, gang. Your offer is going to be taken exponentially more seriously than it would be otherwise, because they really think you know what you're doing, simply from spinning some screwball number on the end of it. Look, all my offers end in 579. I love those numbers, my starting offers, mind you. I don't want my contracts ending in that, because that would mean they said yes to my first offer. And I never want that to happen, because that means I didn't get a chance to bring them up to their price, so they don't feel like they won. And all I awake at night forever wondering how much lower they would have gone. And I'll never find out, because I didn't bracket right at the beginning and I didn't go low enough. So that's, see how all this is layered together? It's all stackable. So I want you using specific numbers. In fact, I'm willing to bet that every single one of you on the call right now are totally capable of this. In fact, wait a minute, you're all capable of flinching, you're all capable of bracketing, and you're all capable of using specific numbers. So there is absolutely nothing there that I have taught you that now that you know it, you can't do. Every single one of you is fully empowered to go do that. So my challenge for you, and I'm still going to teach you more of these, but my challenge to you is even just those first three. Take those and use them this afternoon, use them this evening, use them tomorrow morning when you are making offers. If you're not making any offers, well, we got another problem. We got to work on that, right? But just whatever. Call a for sale by owner sign. Call somebody on Craigslist. They're probably not going to say yes anyway. They're nuts on Craigslist. I don't care. Use them for practice. And practice using these techniques and watch what happens. Now let's talk about some more techniques, all right? Because I get the sense you're enjoying these. I see smiling faces on the camera, so it's good. Here's another one. At a certain point, you'll be negotiating, right? They're going to be bringing you up, you're bringing them down, but you're not quite where you need to be yet, and you get stuck. That's called an impasse when you get stuck. So we need to have techniques to break the impasse, to get unstuck. And one of the best ones for that is called splitting the difference. Splitting the difference. You should absolutely always split the difference when it makes sense for you to do. That way you can break the impasse. So how does it work? Well, there's a right way and a wrong way. I mean, at its essence and at its core, it's effectively another meet in the middle scenario. Say, hey, I'll split the difference with you. Want to meet in the middle? The thing is, if you suggest it and then they say yes, who won? Well, then it would mean that you won because they agreed to what you suggested. So the way I want you to do split the difference is to get them to suggest it to you. Ooh, how do you put words in somebody's mouth? Well, it'd be a fairly easy conversation. Let's take that same example I've been using. Let's say you are now down to 160 and you've brought them up to 140. Remember, we're still targeting 150. So we're $20,000 apart, but 10 grand each off of the goal of 150. So to prompt them to offer to split the difference with me, that way I can agree to it, making them feel like they won, I would lead the conversation like this. I would say, wow, you know, Mr. and Miss Seller, we've come such a long way. We've put in so much work and time and effort together. I mean, it would be a shame to have come this far and not be able to come to an agreement. Isn't there anything we can do? And that leads them to say, well, I guess we could, I could do I can meet you in the middle. We could do 150 if you split the difference with you. To which I say, woo, 150, right? Because I'm always flinching and keeping these layers in the stack going. 150, I might be able to do that, but I need to check with my partners, the senior team, my buyers, my inspectors, my underwriters. Basically, the technique here is called higher authority. I need to check with your higher authority. Now, notice what was the same about all those things I said. I need to check with my team, the senior people, the inspectors, the underwriters, the buyers, all those. I'm exaggerating the S on the end, right? All those are plural. You will screw higher authority up if you make it one other person. If I say, oh, I need to check. If I say I need to check with Bob, well, then what's the natural thing for them to say? Tom, get out of my way. Let me talk to Bob directly, because Bob's clearly the decision maker. So that's a problem, which you brought upon yourself by making your higher authority one singular other person. But when I say I need to check with the team or the senior people in my group or something that's plural, now they can't just push me aside and go right for them. They have to deal with me. So with higher authority, you always want to make sure that that it's plural. That way you're keeping your escape to higher authority. The other benefit to this is a lot of times if you feel unsure about something, I mean, maybe it's your first deal or your first few deals, and you're still a little unsure of yourself, the ability to just say, hey, that's a great question. Let me check with the senior people in my team. Even if you don't have much of a team, right? Most of us work alone, but you are part of a group. You are part of a team. You're in Chris's program. So, I mean, that's right. I mean, that alone, you say, I need to check. Or you have a buyer's list, or you're in a real estate investors association. There's a group out there and there's a team out there. So you're not lying when you say it. But the cool thing is you can back away from anything that you're uncomfortable with and say, let me check and see. So that higher authority and that ability to escape to that higher authority and blame that higher authority for things is a very good idea. In fact, that thought of blaming them effectively makes it good cop, bad cop. And good cop, bad cop is the one negotiation technique everybody knows because it's in every Hollywood movie and TV show. So kind of cool that way. Let's do one more. Here's one I like. I like to, how would I phrase this? I like to give people space to, I like to give them space to think. So technically, it's kind of a sales technique that's crossed over into negotiating. I'll call it the puppy dog close. I give people a chance to think about my offer. What's that have to do with puppy dogs? What do puppy dogs have to do with real estate? Here, look, if you, it's named after pet shop owners that, if you walk in with your kids on a Friday night after school and you're going to buy a dog and you look and there's all these dogs, you don't know which one to choose. The smart pet shop owner doesn't pressure you to make a decision right now. They'll see which one you kind of go after and go, I'll tell you what, take the dog home for the weekend. I won't run your credit card until Monday when you call me and tell me it's okay. And if you want, you can bring the dog back and trade it for another one. No, what cold-hearted SOB in their right mind is going to have a dog home all weekend long, have it run around the yard, peeing on the carpet, everything, and then what? Bring it back on Monday? It ain't happening. But when was the sale made? The sale was made on Friday before you walked out of there with the dog. They just didn't process the payment until Monday. That's the kind of walkaway power. So how do we use this in real estate investing? Well, I give people a chance to think about my offer. Maybe there's someone they want to check it out with. Or you know what? Maybe they're a couple and I'm sitting there at their kitchen table and I'm, trying to go through the negotiation. I get them down to a price. We come to an agreement. They're still a little hesitating because what does a couple want to do? Right? They want to talk about it. They want to talk to each other, and they want to talk to each other in private, not right in front of them. So I will literally walk away. I'll say, I'll tell you what, I'm sure you guys want to talk about this. I'm going to go out to the car for a few minutes. When you're ready, come out and get me, please. It's great. I have a student who does it a lot more he's always, oh, I left something in my car. I got to go get a pen or a piece of paper. And he just excuses himself and walks out, thus giving the couple a chance to think about it. So that's kind of it's a test drive close. It's a walk away close. It's walkaway power to that. And I would also tie that in with if they want to check it with an attorney, let them. A lot of times they're just saying that, so let them say it. Whether or not they check, that's their business, not yours. Or they say, "Oh, my niece is in law school. Let me run it by her." I'll say, "Okay, so today is Thursday. Can you have that done by tomorrow at the end of the day, or Saturday at the end of the day? How long do you need?" And I give them that time, which shows confidence and makes them more likely to want to say yes to me. So those are some 6 specific, well, we even covered a few more, probably about 8 different negotiation techniques. Let me hear from you guys. Pop it into the chat. Is that helpful? Do you see yourself using these techniques? Is that going to give you more deals, more profits out of each deal, and which will lead to more freedom? Richard's agreeing. He thinks yes. What else? Just give me kind of a simple yes and no. Okay, great. We got another yes. We got a yes, absolutely. Very cool. Yes, awesome. Richard, believe this sounds really good. Yeah, I'll prove it to you too. Just go and use it. Watch what happens. Chris is saying yes. Jeremiah is saying helpful for sure. Peter's saying sure. And Debbie's got a yes. Preston, yeah, useful intel. Absolutely. And put it into motion. Watch what happens. Yes, from Todd. Makes sense from Victoria. Very helpful, says Elijah. And fantastic. And yes. And let's see, what have you heard versions of this before? Easy to remember with your stories. Yeah, it's the reason I tend to teach a lot of it with stories, because you remember them better. I also had you write it down, so you could write it down or screenshot that, what I have on the screen right now, so you'll remember what those are and can go and practice them. Fantastic. Yeah, Kevin, I'm very glad. David, very helpful. Absolutely. And talk to your team about it over the weekend. Yeah, Todd, go ahead and do that. Can you get back to me by Monday at noon? Because I want to make sure that's another technique. I want to have a specific date and time, so there's an ultimatum to work up against. Larry's saying very helpful as well, and John is saying yes. So thank you all for participating in that. I think, look, there's always a whole bunch more I can teach you. At the end of the day, I'm sensitive about time. So Chris, let me have you pop back on and let's open up to some questions.
Yeah, you guys raise your hand, the emoji, or you can type in the chat if you don't want to chat. I'd rather have you live, but your choice. Go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll put you on live. And if you're thinking about it as usual, everybody else is too. So go ahead and raise your hand, and you've got, it's like any other coaching moment. You've got 9 minutes with Tom. Pick his brain, ask questions. Let's bat this around a bit. Sandra.
Tom, I'm sorry, my screen froze. In your pyramid, you had strategy, tactics, angle, confidence, and what was the K?
Yep. K is for know-how. I put it back on the screen for you.
Thank you.
K is for know-how. Because we certainly need a lot of know-how to make this happen.
Is that good, Sam? Cool. Brian?
Go for it.
Yeah. So, quick question for you: when you, when they tell you a price like 200 and you want to anchor your 100, right? You're trying to find that middle ground. If your price is 150, you flinch, and then what do you say? Like, oh man, like, would you consider 100, or how do you phrase that when you're offering a significantly lower price?
Awesome. So it kind of depends what else they say with it. Like, that's way too low. Well, then I'll say something like, "Oh, look, I'm sorry. I certainly didn't mean to offend you. I mean, help me out. What would I need to come up to make this work for you?" And then I zip my mouth and be quiet and let them call up. And I use the same technique if they're hesitant to give, because some people, like, all right, some people know, don't give a number first. And so fine, then I'll just say something like, help me out. What would I need to come up to make this work for you? So I'll give a low number first and then let them bring me up. What you'll find that a lot with, to be honest, is foreign-born sellers. I mean, Americans are not great natural negotiators. We don't grow up negotiating for anything. The price is what the price is. And we all feel funny about asking for a discount, right? We feel weird. But foreign-born sellers, which I'm sure we're all coming, up against a lot of them, they've grown up in countries that negotiate for everything. And so they probably couldn't break it down like this, but they instinctively know some of these things. So when they're saying, you know, when they hesitate to give you a number first, they're not going to give you a number first. So don't worry about it. You know, whoever gives the number first loses. That's not true. Just if you have to give a number first, do it. Just give a low number with a specific number and let them bring you up. And use use phrases like, "I'm sorry, you know, what would I have to come up to make this work for you?"
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Peter.
Yeah, so you mentioned about some icebreakers to, you know, help the seller start talking. You know, in a conversation that is 2-3 minutes, what do you recommend?
Why are you? I mean, honestly, the most basic questions you could think of. Why are you selling?
Okay.
And then dig deeper. Oh, what are you going to do if you don't sell? Have you had it listed? Is it with an agent? Literally, really basic questions. But some of them are yes, no. But the better ones are going to be open-ended. That way, no matter what they say, you could, hey, why are you selling? Well, I'm selling because a giant tree fell through the property, wrecked the roof, and then I realized I want to retire and move on anyway. You go, oh, great. So you want to retire? That's awesome. And a tree fell through your house. Wow. So tell me more about that. Like, what are you going to do when you retire? Where are you going to go? This starts to get into a concept of future pacing, where you are, you put the other person into the future in their mind, and you get them to think and feel as if they're actually there. Their problems are already gone and they've moved on and they have the money from the property and all that. And you get them to taste it. And then you, I'm sorry, I don't mean this to sound rotten, but then you pull the rug out from underneath them and you bring them back to the stark reality of today where they don't have what they want. They still stuck with their property. They're still stuck with their problems. They don't have the money to solve all of that. And they're still experiencing the pain. Because when you do that, then they realize, well, you were the one that led them to that, you know, what the perfect future was. You paced them into that future, you took it away, but now you can give it back. And I know that sounds a little crass, that sounds a little cruel, but let me put it this way. I do it out of love. That sounds cheesy and small, but you're doing it out of love, because if you don't push them, someone else is going to, and that someone else may not be as honest, moral, ethical as you, and they're certainly not you and your family and your business that wants to do deals and make money. So they're going to wind up selling to somebody, or their problems are going to eat them alive. Like they're going to lose the house to foreclosure, or it's going to get messed up in a probate or something else. So it actually behooves you to help them by putting some salt in their wounds. Again, not in a nasty way, but because it's tough love. You're doing it out of tough love.
Peter, helpful?
Yep, definitely.
Sweet. Marilena.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, hi Tom, thank you for everything.
My pleasure.
We know sales has been around forever and techniques and everything, but have you encountered anything new with the changing times? Is there something new that you've newly incorporated or?
You know, I'm glad you asked that, because all the bright, shiny objects, I find myself still doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down on the fundamentals. I mean, I didn't invent the techniques I've taught you. I've polished them. I've made them my own. I do them my way. But you know, some of it's been around. It's been around forever, but people don't know it, right? Negotiating is a super important skill. It's that middle piece between finding a deal and making a deal, getting paid, that's missing, that most people aren't any good at. And yet, when you focus on it, you'll have more deals, more profits. Your business will do better. You'll get the goals that you're after. It's that critically important, and yet it ain't taught in school. Like, negotiation was the one thing that radically changed the trajectory of my business. You know, more people saying yes at better prices. I mean, it is obvious. And yet, why isn't it taught in school? Why doesn't anyone teach this? Maybe people, every time I ask, they say, well, it's not fun. People don't like learning it. People don't like teaching it. It's like grammar in school or something. I'm going, I have a blast teaching this stuff, and my students have fun using it. But I guess I've just found a way of making it interesting, because maybe it's boring. I don't know. Maybe I'm a boring guy, but that's it. These are the fundamentals. I'm not sure there's anything that new. Like, is Chat GPT going to do this for me? No, right? You got to do it yourself. Is it some newfangled way of coming about? No, it's kind of the old school approach. But my argument is that the old school is so old and forgotten about that it's actually new again, right? You heard like what's old is new again. It works. That's what matters.
Love it. Thanks, Marlena. We have time for one more. Preston, you were up. Just a reminder for everybody before we take this last question, all apprentice, because it's some new people, and associates will jump to the associate mastermind call at 5 o'clock. Preston, real quick, we'll hit you and then we got to run.
Great.
Put Tom's link up again. I'll pin it.
Great. So, Tom, thank you for the presentation. Now, I'm going to try and make this quick, talk fast. So, when you've done the icebreaker and you're having that dialogue, my question is, do you put a time limit on that dialogue before you pull the rug under, or are you using some intuition, or is it come from confidence? How would you respond to putting a timeline on that question Q&A part when you're talking to the seller?
The answer to all those kind of D, all of the above. You want to be doing all of them, but it is the time limit that will get the result. Now, nobody likes a deadline, and yet we all respond to a deadline. I mean, how many people go running for airplanes? Because there's a deadline, you're going to miss it, right? You show up at a doctor's appointment on time, even though you know the doctor's going to be late, because deadlines are powerful. So let's not forget how powerful deadlines are when we're trying to get things done. So I will always give a deadline to people. It's not, hey, call me back and let me know. It's, I've made you this offer. This offer is good until the end of the day. This offer is good until tomorrow, close the business. Offer is good until the end of the week. Whatever deadline feels appropriate, you'll get a sense for it based on how that conversation went. But you want to have a deadline there because people are going to work against that deadline, work to make it happen. So you always want to make sure you have that time pressure in place. And if you need a reason for it, you can say, hey, look, my group's doing a lot of different deals. I don't want all of our money get tied up somewhere else and have you lose out. So I'm going to ask you to get this contract done today, or I'm going to ask you to make whatever phone calls you got to make this afternoon. And then, let's tie this thing up by 6 p.m. Whatever it happens to be, right? I want to put some sort of time pressure on them to make sure I'm getting a response. Does that make sense and answer your question?
Awesome. Preston, cool. You are hereby welcomed into the New England clan because you talked so fast and that was perfect. Tom, awesome hanging out with you again. I think it was 2 days in a row with myself and you and Zach. So I appreciate you and I look forward to doing more together. Everybody have a great night. Those associates and apprentices, let's jump over to the private mastermind call. Tom, have a great long weekend, buddy.
Thanks, Chris. Take care, everyone. Thank you all.